Hello, Lena. Nice to meet you again. How's it going for
Hi,
you?
Tom. I'm good. How are you?
Doing quite well. Quite busy, as always. Since the last time we spoke, a lot of things happened, and we signed a new, very big deal inside of ElifTech. So I think
Oh, super
um,
nice to hear. Tell me more about it.
it's actually connected with one of our conversations that we did, similar like we do right now, but with our other partner. And the one of our potential client watched that, and he decided to talk to me, just to know more about ElifTech, what we do, those kind of things. So definitely those type of
Sounds great.
content. This type of content works definitely, and we would be open to share much more regarding our processes, experience, and
Of course.
yeah. But I think regarding this kind, I would tell a bit more maybe in another conversation because it's going to be a long story. But I
Sure,
think
sure. Let's do the way it's just.
yeah, but I think we could discuss today what we started last time about the effectiveness on scaling the companies, the businesses using the remote technical teams, using software development vendors or partners. And that's kind of a very important topic to discuss because a lot of different companies from different markets and industries do not want or do not know how to use software development vendors or remote developers to be onboarded inside of their company to work on their projects. They don't really understand how that could be really effective, and they always have some sort of obstacles or circumstances on that type of cooperation cannot work, or that would impact on their investors or their business models. And this is not really truth, to be honest. And that's one of the things that I want to discuss with you. Well, my first question would be to you, since you deal in a lot of with different companies around the world. What are the biggest challenges companies face when they scaling remotely or they're planning to scale, but they don't know how to do that?
Actually, to add a little bit more on what you already mentioned, I would say that many companies not just don't know how to outsource or how to choose external vendors. Maybe it's even about the fear, because fear is one of the things that are driving that decision, that kind of decision for most of the companies, because they are afraid to give up the security stuff, to lose the communication, to lose the control, and to not to achieve the result that they are expecting for. So, in essence, I think I would define at least a couple of challenges that companies that are considering to start outsourcing phase. So first of all, it's expectations related challenge, because when you are hiring someone really fast, you shouldn't forget to set a very clear KPI for that external partner, to tell them what deliverabilities you expect, how you expect a workflow to go, and what tasks they really need to do, and what is nice to have if some additional time is sorry left. Another thing is very, very good onboarding, because after you have a good onboarding, it's easier for vendors to also understand what are your expectations, and how to prepare some documentation, how to also get and prepare some project handovers and so on. So another important thing is time zone challenges, because very often if there is a big difference in time zones, they are afraid that they won't have sufficient enough communication to make sure that all the tasks are synchronized, all the understanding is the same about what needs to be done. Another thing to mention is security related, because very often companies think that the third party vendor will just copy their product and resell their idea to someone, but also there are good practices, like for instance, companies who are really having strict security requirements, they sometimes even give their own hardware to external vendors, and specifically give their own licenses to continue working with, because that way they can control part of the work that is being done. There are also several things related to soft skills that companies are considering. So this is cultural values, because as the team grows, especially if more different countries are joining the project, so it is important to set some basic understanding what is acceptable and what may be potentially offensive to another party in another company. And of course, companies that are afraid to hire external vendor most of the time are also concerned about lack of human communication, I mean live human communication, because well, people are social creatures, right? So social socialization is very important for them, and they want to have a colleague in the office, to have a coffee together and so on. But I would also come to a very good example of a GitLab or Revolut, because for instance, when GitLab started to expand and grow really significantly, and they I think have now people from over 60 countries, if not even more, they actually created a remote working manifesto. Of course, it was super long, like 2,000 pages. And I doubt that someone would read all of that content. But the idea was that if you have any questions, no matter if you are a vendor, if you are a remotely working colleague from another company, another country, you can always open that manifest and easily find all information that you're looking for. And another practice, good practice that, for instance, Revolut is applying, I know it's not easy, but for instance, they are having international lunch for all the people in different countries, of course, as long as it's possible to match. So bonding people together, having good practices, having transparency and documentation helps to solve part of these challenges at least.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. A lot of things, yeah, that can impact and influence on all of that strategy for the big companies. And one of the other thing that I know, mentioning, of course, as you mentioned, Revolut and big financial companies, it's about also cultural fit and a cultural strategy and in general mindset of the companies. Because let's say European companies or UK companies, they have a little bit different mindset in terms of how they interact with people. And I think the people is the value and the key resource in this cooperation. And they not get used to work as much with the Eastern European, let's say, vendors or any other remote vendors, let's say from Italy or Poland or Czech Republic, from Ukraine, etc. And what you think, what kind of a strategy can help them to build a strong this cultural fit, making sure that all the teams around the world could cooperate efficiently and providing really good results? What you think on that?
Well, first of all, I believe that it's very important to have at least a little of introduction with a cultural background of the country in which you have colleagues that you work with. And this is crucial to understand, because that helps, first of all, to adjust to their way of thinking. For instance, some time ago, I was participating in one very interesting workshop that was talking about differences, cultural differences between Lithuanians and Scandinavians, how one and another country is planning things. So, for instance, Lithuanians are acting very fast and are solving problems on the way. Scandinavians have a tendency to first discuss everything to the smallest detail, and only after all the picture is clear, they start working. So knowing that thing can make it easier when you start dealing with colleagues. And it's basically about each country, because all of us have our peculiarities shaped by environment. Another strategy that could also help is having some maybe daily ritual, like virtual coffee chats or daily stand-ups, just to sync with your team, just to understand how they feel, what they do, and so on. Another thing which is important when there is a huge difference in timing, and not just for that, it's having documentation, because if you are on the same page with your colleague, it's easier for you to start doing the task from the moment where your colleague finished doing that task. You also mentioned cultural values, so it's also very important to highlight that, of course, companies at most are already doing that, but sometimes when the project is very time sensitive, they are basically hiring the skills, not the personality, and it not always ends up very well. So one of the things that should be taken into consideration is cultural fit, similar approach towards doing things, and so on. And again, maybe I can come with one good example. What strategy did Zapier use? Probably are at least some of you familiar with the name. So they did pair buddies, where actually people from any spot in the world could join the random virtual coffee chats, and this helps them to sync, to have a small talk, and to understand their colleagues better. So having activities like these basically allow, I think, you to prepare better, to understand the team that you're working with, and so on.
Definitely. One thing came to my mind is that there's another side of this situation where basically people don't want to work remotely, and they struggle sitting at home, or like at least 12 hours per day sitting at home doing their stuff, and that's kind of a demotivate them. And a lot of, especially right now, a lot of people trying to get a job in the office, and that's another story where basically right now, external vendors or any recruitment companies or any staff augmentation company should provide all the necessary stuff in order to increase their productivity and making sure that they perform. And that's kind of a battle where basically the services that provide those type of companies to the businesses should be also part of the value that they provide and the part of the fee that they charge, still developer or teams, and that would work 100%. That's not an ideal world, and definitely a lot of work should be done on both sides, and a lot of people just don't businesses people just don't understand that it's a collaborational approach. And once the companies are providing the best services for the employees, as well as the internal one and the external one, then the strategy could work for both of them. But a lot of businesses just like, and what Zapier did, that's really well. And I think all of the IT companies should provide this as a part of a cultural exchange, provide this, let's say, activity checks. I'm not sure if I would say that right way, where basically people should understand when they come to work, they do something together. They all work for one result. It can be just one project, it can be multiple projects or one
Yeah.
specific goal, but people should understand that they are coming to the office to do one specific job that improves not only their skills, but they do something really useful. And that kind of a goal helps globally and resolving some problems or issues, or giving some benefits to the people around, or to the businesses, to the world, etc. So yeah, that's kind of a long conversation how to do that, and different companies have different approaches on how to do that. And what I see right now is that only those who cares about that in progression, they have much better results, much better clients, much more reliable clients, because business should work from both sides, definitely.
Exactly.
And you have to find this, you have to balance, and you have to really understand what would be the best solution, exactly in their situation, exactly on their stage. Yeah, so
Actually, there
totally.
is one additional maybe thing that I would
Uh-huh.
like to add on what's already
Sure.
discussed. There is also one pretty standard practice that is used by some vendors with their clients. Like if you are in the same country or even if the same city, companies are dedicating teams or dedicating single employees that are working using hybrid model. That means that some days can be from their home or from their employee's office, while other days might be on site at your client's place. So this allows
Hmm.
also to bond better together, to understand each other together, and in the long term that shapes more trust, more reliability, and while actually helps to even increase teams when there is a good working quality, when there is understanding and whole approach. Let's say it's quality oriented.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree with you. But going back to our main topic, the other question that I prepared for today, when should companies or businesses hire full-time remote developers or teams versus working with the freelancers or IT staff augmentation companies? What do you think?
Oh, that's a very good question. That reminds me to which was the first, the egg or a hen? But it's a never-ending discussion because each company has very individual approach on what has to strictly be done internally and for what kind of tasks they can maybe consider or also hire external vendors. But maybe I would stick with the approach that if I really need someone for my super security sensitive product or to develop the core of the product that also requires a lot of industry knowledge, a lot of understanding, in-depth understanding, I mean, and also I expect that person to be committed to my company for 10, I don't know, 12 years, you name that, and also help my team to grow. I would probably hire internally, but this is
But
not
is it
always a what. Yeah.
But is it worse to hire in-house, paying 5 times more? And if you have a, let's say, strict budget, rather than just to go for the certified as and the companies that have delivered secured projects from similar industry, would that not be worth to work with the external vendor?
It really depends. It really depends because it's not always more expensive to hire internally because what calculates customers is usually that if they hire external party, so it means that their employee is paying them salary, and it also there is a margin added. Well, because each company is seeking for the profit, right? And it immediately seems to these clients that they are overpaying for the dedicated specialist or for external resource. However, it's not always true because for staff augmentation, sometimes you just need a very specific, very niche skills in your team that would take too long you to find on your own, that it's difficult to find. Maybe these are some very niche skills, right? Or
Exactly.
this can be or also a short-term task like I don't know, maybe some auditing, maybe some migration, maybe someone wants a specialist who could just build a solution architecture and from here they can take that further on their own. So there are plenty of cases when it's definitely cheaper to hire external specialists with the skills because you don't need to invest too much time into looking for these specific people and you already receive a specialist who comes with lots of accumulated knowledge, with a baggage of know-how and so on. Another thing, we often speak with non-technical people who are just looking for the best way to implement their semi-technical idea. And for them, it's super complicated to actually decide if one or another IT specialist is reliable, whether that specialist has some specific skills from technical perspective, because from soft skills it's quite clear, right? So I like to compare these types of businesses with maybe a truck driving from point A to point B. If you are a business owner, but you are not really a technical person, you are thinking about that cargo as of okay, I have to load at that point, it will go fast and it will be
Yeah.
delivered then and so on. And my revenue and my margin and my additional things will be whatever. And if we think about the technical person who is thinking about exactly the same truck going from point A to point B, that person is likely to ask completely different questions like, what is the road? What are the tires? What is the road surface? How heavy weight can this truck carry, and so on. So, I mean, these both approaches are neither wrong nor right. These are complementary approaches, and one cannot function without another one. So, if you are a non technical person looking to create a semi technical solution or SaaS or some other digital product, you, I think, really need an external vendor, because for you it's simply you're focusing on different things, which is driving force for your business, but you need a backup.
Yeah, it's worth it to hire external vendor or external teams in combination of your own, let's say, technical team like CTO or some core team. That usually works much better because you can from one side control of everything from internal processes perspective,
Yeah.
as well as you have quite good capacity from external vendor that is anyway much cheaper than to hire from the market. And as you rightly mentioned, it's sometimes quite time consuming process, and you just hire 3, 4, 5 developers, and you're just paying salary to the vendor, and you're not worrying about anything. But for your own team, you have to care about, again, cultural fit, engagement with them. You're paying for recruitment, etc., etc. So it's anyway, as a business processes, they include hidden cost which you don't see from the first perspective. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
that was.
actually, I think you can also think about the model where you leave the core knowledge internally and you have flexibility with your external parties for non that crucial features, non that crucial modules. And that works perfectly. We had a perfect example of that when Spotify started scaling, because at the very beginning they also thought that they will stick with their internal team, but eventually the product was simply growing too fast and they needed someone additionally to help them out to fit within deadlines on the market. So what they did, they also left core technologies and core thing in terms of programming internally, and they have all that elastic pool of external vendors.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, that's it from my side today. I asked all the questions I want to. I'm open to your questions, Selena, if you have some.
Actually, I was wondering, how does ElifTech solve similar cases whenever you have the customer who is maybe not that much eager to hire externally, but what are your main strengths in that case?
That's a very good question. Anyway, as you also mentioned earlier, it's case by case. But if to highlight, the main approach is our, I would say, DNA of our company is to not just provide the resources or just to do business, but to solve the problem and provide the needed solution. For example, if we understand that, okay, the client has a budget and he's ready to hire, but we understand, okay, we can provide him with like 5 people, but we would make a good profit, but we don't want to do that. We suggest another option where, okay, you don't need 5 people. Let us do a small, let's say, audition for X number of budgeting, and we will provide our suggestion on how to move forward. And we don't see even from the beginning that you don't need 5 people. Maybe you need just the one really good solution architect and a one engineer, basically, who would do all this work, and in combination of your team, or if you don't have a team, we can do that on our side. We provide the best solution according to the business needs at this moment. Let's say, if we're talking about some specific feature or features that is really important for the either market or for the testing groups, etc. We usually see this main goal when we're dealing with the clients and customers. Not just, of course, there are a lot of requests where, okay, they clearly understand why they need 3 or 4 or 5 or
Yeah,
just one
yeah.
people, Then we just
But
provide
these,
it.
I assume, usually involve technical people who are able to assess and decide
Absolutely.
upon scaling the project, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And when we understand when the clients clearly need just one engineer or two, we provide them. But anyway, we stay tuned. We control, and we are involved into the projects, and we understand the ecosystem and the flow. And we try to, if we have an opportunity, of course, to suggest the most efficient ways or our opinions, thoughts from our engineers on how that could be improved or what we see the best option. Of course, if the client is open to, sometimes you just have to do your job and that's it, because client said, okay guys, we are in a strict rules. That's also quite often case, but that's in general our approach, how we deal with these types of requests.
And maybe do you recall at least one case where it took you enormous efforts to start working with a customer because you were super skeptical about starting to work with ElifTech as an external vendor, but eventually you convinced them to start working with you, and at the end of the day, it became like even a friendship. It
uh,
felt like a victory, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It started a long time ago, and they were really skeptical. They just wanted to get an engineers, but they didn't know exactly how to build the teams around. We just started with one engineer, and right now it's a client who we have been working with for the 8 years already, and there are 45
Wow.
people as a core team.
Wow, super nice.
Started with one full stack engineer, and right now it's a core. Our team is a core leading engineers inside of their project. They also have their internal big team, but we are responsible for some specific part. Let's say AI, AI engineering, AI solutions that our core team and our AI lead uh, works for the Cloud, and he builds a team around him. Plus, we have on different departments of the project inside of the company. I mean, that work on different side of the projects. We have another teams that are working on that specific part, and we exactly applied the approach I explained because we knew that they needed guidance, but they were skeptical because companies in the United States, they had office in the United States, how it can be that they should work with the company from Ukraine. How that
Because
possible?
of the time zone differences and so
Of
on, I assume,
course.
right?
And afterward, there were requirements from investments. There are some compliances that they have to pass, and still it doesn't stop, or it's not a bottleneck to work with the Ukrainian company. They are presenting us, and we are presenting them as a technical partner, the core, one
So
of the
can I
core technical
actually
partners.
say that the key reason for gaining the trust to be able to scale the project was the approach of your team?
Part of it, it's not that easy. Of course, it's a complex work of not only the
Always.
from the technical part, but from the business perspective. Our CEO was involved into all of the business communications as well. Inside of the business, of course, during the time, a lot of C-level management were changing as well, and we had to adopt because they had their own vision. A lot of things went in a not really right way, and that's part of the journey that we were with them, and they clearly understood that they want to stick to ElifTech in terms of technical responsibility and delivery possibilities, rather than just to it's for them it's so painful to change the vendor if they want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get a new engineers, because they don't know what to expect about the ElifTech. They know exactly everything about the starting from recruitment process, and then how we deliver, about our methodologies, and how we basically deal with the delivery. Yeah.
So transparency also helps, and well-structured processes.
Absolutely, but as a business person, say you always have to balance a bit, because sometimes you have to push something, but sometimes you have to just accept what the client wants, what the business wants, just to sometimes make them fail, to say, look, we prevented this. That's part of a strategy that every company does.
Yeah.
So you have to have really good salespeople.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. So I wish actually ElifTech to have even more customers like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for your time, Alina, joining today. It was a pleasure again.
Pleasure
Hopefully see you
likewise,
soon.
Tom. See you
Absolutely.
soon.